Welcome to another podcast from Traders Community, brought to you by traderscommunity.com. Welcome investors, traders, punters and dribblers, and especially a big day if you are an energy trader, you have energy positions, or you are from the great state of Texas. Obviously a good day for all, and we have the big fella on screen. Other than that movement, it was pretty well a straightforward bear market rally. Couldn't get lower than the low we'd just seen the day before on S&P. Was it the day before that? And we rallied from that. And remember, one thing we really practice is getting the read of the market. That's why we use waves and maths. And when you get bad news and it doesn't follow through and you have a very specific downside break target, it makes it a pretty straightforward buy. And algos trade with that. Remember, algos have no emotion. So anyway, without further ado, and remember, this is not financial advice. It's just sharing our thoughts and experiences and what we hear around the desk and how that may help your trading, hopefully. So we have the big fella here, the glorious Madavi. And just as a heads up, we didn't do too much on futures today. As I said, we're in that bear market rally we talked about. So sometimes the best trades you do are the ones you don't do. So in those kind of rallies, so we just got those same positions on. Small short on the S&P off the weekly tanking. And then some day trading off those -2.8s. And like I said, that follow through. So today's big moves were all about energy, and those that have been with us with Traders Community on this podcast, you know where we've been on that. So it's been pretty rewarding, particularly the crap we got from the dribblers last year going on, how it's dead and boring and got to pull your money in tech, and just reminds you of one specific dribbler, really. Madavi.
No.
So it is rewarding, and I'm a little bit biased being Australian living in Texas. It's a pretty good day for that. So, but you don't get carried away with it. Remember, always trail your profits, lock in, take some off. So a good day for that. As we speak, we just had the API out earlier, and that was a mixed bag. It was a bigger build in crude and distillate, and it was also a build in gasoline, but there was a draw on Cushing. And again, remember, this is API, so not a lot of traders pay much heed to it. It really only matters if it markets at extremes, and it goes that way. So in other words, we're sitting at, say, 120, comes out with some massive draw or something. S&P 4152, you can see that pennant on the 5 minutes. It's come off since the close about 14 handles. The Russell trying to get up to that 2,000, still a fair way away, but it's bounced a bit. 1914. Nat Gas, again, another big day, 934. NASDAQ, since has come off again off the high, 12,680. And Vol, as you saw, just sold off all day. So we had that, I think, target was down as much as 10%. The scary thing is, and this is why you know in a bear market rally, there's no heat to it. But just think about this. Those guys reported 3 weeks ago and got wrecked, as did Walmart. 3 weeks later, they're warning. And people are trying to justify, it's because of they got to get rid of their inventory. Well, F me dead, right? Doesn't that mean they're not selling anything? And they got cash used up. But anyway, without further, let's not get too carried away. That'd be too logical. Yeah. So let's look real quick on the mighty SPOOs. So where we got it. So SPOOs daily. Look what we held. Again, right? It's not magic. The bottom today, so it didn't quite get to the lows. You're already watching that. And it held the tanking, and we bounced hard from it. See that bounce? So this is, it's just classic stuff. Now the weekly, look what it's doing. It's right back to that weekly tanking. And that's the level above here we're out, right? Given where the daily is. So it's very close. Above here, like I said yesterday, it doesn't seem likely, but you just got to respect your charts and your order flow. And so 150 handles away is Cajun. Doesn't seem likely, but we can have some big moves when we have all those inflation numbers out. And then you can see there's also that trend line, which is before there. So that may just do it here, and it becomes a spot of the tanking. Mm-hmm. Let's see what the market's got to tell us, right? And there's your 240. You can see it's building some kind of pennant. I can do a few lines here. And you can see what's going on, right? So if you look at this didn't go lower than that. That was a double top bottom the other day, which is a pretty straightforward trade. So keep an eye on this little pennant. Okay, anything you want to say about the Nasdaq, mate? I know you didn't do much on it, so.
Yeah, I didn't do much on it. I basically reduced a little bit of my size on it, but still got my swing position on it. Went long in the afternoon. In the morning, last night I made some good money on the short side of it. This morning I got stopped out of it and went along a little bit. Besides that, it was a pretty boring day.
Yeah, it was a good sell-off yesterday. So so what happened yesterday were a couple of things after the market. One, the dollar yen went to another 20-year high. In other words, selling yen, buying dollars. The Bank of Japan governor came out, Caruto, and he was like, watching it, but nothing too. So that gave it another leg. Then the RBA came out and said, okay, we're done mucking around. And they did a surprise 0.5% rise in interest rates down there in Australia. Now, remember, Australia doesn't have the inflation it has here, the pressure there, and they have the commodities and all that sort of stuff. So, nevertheless, they kind of were the last ones to raise. New Zealand was the first, or was it Brazil maybe? Brazil, I think, right, Madhav? Brazil might have raised first. Then New Zealand, Mexico, they've all been raising for a while. America, Australia, Australia rose last month. Europe, so the ECB's out on Thursday. They haven't raised yet, but they had their Dutch guy, I can't remember his name, said maybe we do it faster and maybe do 0.5%. Reality is we got a lot of bloody inflation, and we're about to talk about when we go through energy and gas. But so if you don't drive a car, you don't use anything plastic, you don't eat nacho cheese, you don't heat, you don't cool, you don't any form of plastic, then energy doesn't mean anything to you. Don't worry about it. Just ask. I mean, that's pretty well what they're saying, right? The market's saying. So, but on a serious note, remember these bear market rallies defy logic, because what you have is some smart people speaking with logic tend to get short, they get stopped out, then eventually that hits equilibrium, and then you go down. That's what a rising wedge or a bear market, whatever you want to call it, is. So what was I about to do? Energy. Yeah. So we're going to look at the energy itself. So oil, just steady Eddie. And as I said, we had API out, like 30 minutes ago or something. Maybe a bit longer, actually. We have EIA out tomorrow. It's just been generally going up, then it comes down off the highs and it's just working its way up. Again, you got pretty distinct trend lines here. Use your, just simply use your grid. It's 3 or 5. Just keep it that simple. And that's what's enabled us to stay in these positions, keeping it simple and in the stock ones related to it. So here's the weekly, and you can see it even more there. So the bearish would be 3, even if it's a 5. So if it's a 5, obviously, then this would be 1, 2, 3. The top's in. If it's a 3, then this would be still corrective. 1, 2, 3, and then it goes a lot higher. There is a possibility, of course, this was a very short 4, and we go up. It's all pretty simple. Keep everything in 3s. If you're going to use Elliott, that's what works, keeping it simple. Okay, I guess we should look at the 240. And you can see Oh, by the way, also the EIA, and it's on the website, put out their short-term energy report, which comes out every month, STO, if you ever see that, that's what it means. On oil and gas, they expecting oil production to increase. They're saying also OPEC, actually I can probably share it. They're saying OPEC is already at pre-sanction, not sanctions. What was the other thing we had? Oh, the virus. So the pandemic, that's the word I was looking for. So here it is, you can get on the site. EIA raised their oil production forecast and says OPEC production has returned to pre-pandemic. So here you got, it's a nice little presentation there, explains it all, the highlights. They also commented on global, world, you can see where it fell with the pandemic, then on Russia, how that's falling away, outlook on that, and then, so that's that. And then you've also got...
They made the NVAX out. I just got out of it. I just went along.
Which one?
NVAX.
Oh, NVAX? Yeah, so did you see Wyatt? How much did it open up?
57, about where I was short.
Where did it close at?
47.
Oh, so it's up $10. What was it on? Did they win some FDA?
FDA advisory group voted to recommend NVAX vaccine.
But do people still take that? Anyway, sorry, I shouldn't joke. But back on track, and we'll look at that in a minute. So if you heard that news, Madavi saying NVAX, who's been closed all day, just opened back up. They opened up $10. They got FDA approval for a COVID vaccine. Okay, so they also did natural gas. The big thing is here, we have seen in the last 6 months go from Australia, the biggest LNG exporter in the world, and every odd month now the US is overtakes them because basically pretty much because of European deals. And Qatar, or Qatar, I say Qatar, some people say Qatar, whatever, however you want to spell it or say it, they were the biggest a few years ago, and they're actually, I'm not sure if they're still tied in, but they're tied in with Exxon, which we'll talk about also in a little bit. So go through and that'll give you a good overview on natural gas and oil, what's going on. They do a pretty good job. Just a reminder on LNG, they were able to increase their export because Jalisco Pass, which is another, actually I think it's in Louisiana. It's right next to the border. Came open, so that's how they've increased it. As you know, the rest of it all pretty well comes from Texas, right? So Freeport, Sabine, Cameron, and I saw LNG, the symbol LNG, which is Cheniere, like at $140 today. These things are incredible. We'll look at those in a little bit. Okay, let's get back on track. So that's oil. So Natty. Now these things are vicious. You can see it actually on a daily went higher today, right? So this can be a completion. When you see that, you got to respect it. And now it's a pretty clear short. So I watched a YouTube or a private video from a buddy of ours, Vince, who you may know as VBO or Goldfix, and his partner did a really good preview on natural gas and oil. And a good point he makes is when we're so vertical, and I think we mentioned it here, you have a good, if it actually starts paying, you know you have a good risk measurement, like that previous high here, right? So that's natty, and you can see the same thing on weekly. We've been talking about that. On a week, it's still very much a green bar, so you got to be aware of that. Okay, stocks. So I'm not sure if NVAX will come up yet because I've got to load it. But so we're going to look at Exxon, as you know, is one of our favorites. Good story here. I know the ESG people hate it, but maybe they don't anymore because it made that list that old Elon got all pissed off about. He's an angry little man lately, Elon, isn't he? But anyway, here's the hourly on Exxon, and you can see it just powered up. It's been sitting under 100 for a while. Probably a little bit to do with options. It got upgraded by... Who'd they get upgraded by? Forget who they get upgraded, but they were upgraded. Why does that matter? Here's what I'd be. If that's my broker, I'm like, why did you wait for $100 to upgrade it, right? This thing we started buying just over 30 to put it into perspective, right? So it was upgraded by Evercore to Outperform from Inline. So if you look at weekly, and this is really, we don't really need to look at a lot of other energy stocks, but look what it did. So I can show you. So when oil got down to zero, which Madavi got put into the Hall of Fame for his trading down there, this thing got down to $27, right? And keep in mind, these guys never stop paying their dividend. So when I said that about Texas at the start, I wasn't joking, because the biggest employees are in Texas and other countries that believe in it, and they weren't swayed by the politics of it all. So you've seen a real transfer of wealth from other states to Texans, basically. Just this and the other ones, they're pretty conservative. I don't mean politically, but they'll go where things they know, which is obviously oil and gas, cattle, whatever, and things that pay dividends. So Chevron, Exxon, these sort of companies that pay dividends, Diamondback, they've done really well for a lot of people. Anyway, you can see what it did, and it took a while to break here, and this is where a lot of smart people added in over 64. Now remember, these guys are oil and natural gas, and as I said, they're in that ESG thing, so they're moving more and more to clean energy, and they got battery plays and all this sort of stuff. So that's that, and they pretty well all look the same, Madavi. Look at this, 1, 2, bang.
Yep.
Apache, I could go on about them, but the hard thing as a trader or an investor is if you're pretty well Australian or Texan or Canadian, South Africa, all these commodity-based economies, you've been through booms and busts, and you're usually not from places like that are paid out by, I don't want to use the word social, but very much limited wealthy population and a high lot of people on social welfare. Like New Zealand has a big California, everyone take America, so they get kind of smoothed out, or a lot of. But places that I guess are more risk takers, they know this can all end, right? And it will end. It's just the way commodities are, Anyone who trades gold, oil, buddy, you all know what can happen. So the hard thing is, so what it looks like to me is a lot of locals out of those countries have been taking it off. A lot of people refused to buy them because they weren't allowed to. They created funds, so-called ESG and all this. And finally they've relented, right? So hypocrisy usually gets over greed. And all that plays out. So perhaps that's what's going on here. It looks very fifth wavy of some degree. So I'd advise protecting yourself by puts, taking some off or whatever. Not that I'm giving advice, just be common sense, right? These are real stocks, and by what I mean by that, they actually make money, they have real assets, and they pay dividends. But they're underlying, just say something happened in oil and gas or the world blows up economically, but they're very different to what we call the DDDs, all those tech stocks that don't make money, not hard asset base and all that. So I don't want to scare you with that. So we could go through them all, but I'm not gonna. They're going to be very similar. Okay, Amazon, one we talked about yesterday, and we said that it was what it was. Well, they still haven't updated it. I got to work out how to do that. So we said that. I guess we got to go 1 minute chart. So the reason we did that trade yesterday, bought Friday, sold Monday, was it was purely on doing a 20-to-1 split. So no improved earnings, nothing like that. There's reasons for it. More people can trade it. Options. But the bottom of the line is there's more stock available and it has to fill the gap. Well, it did that today. So that was nice. I'm pretty sure it did it. We can't. I got to work out how to fix that. But you saw the other mega caps, which is what we said. Apple and Microsoft and these other guys carried the flag again today, and people like that. So remember, just try and keep it logic. A lot of this stuff isn't logic. Here's Apple, and you can see potentially it could, if we go the bullish route or route on the S&P or the Nasdaq, it could get back up here and test this 50 right at that the Tankin and that trend line, which looks like it's just over 50. Okay, let's see
CLPT.
if we got it. I don't think we got it preloaded, but we're going to see if it shows it. It might have to wait. NVAX. So NVAX, as Madavi mentioned, we all know them. They're like the last guys, weren't they? Basically Moderna and Pfizer.
Yeah, they're ones who blew the whole run.
Yeah, which you've said a number of times. It's been one of your favourite shorts. Well,
yeah.
So here we have it. This is a 1 minute chart. We'll go back and look where it... Well, actually, we should look at where it is weekly, I guess. So you can see on a weekly chart, and it gapped up after market. So I've got this set just for intraday on the weekly. So this thing, as Madavi said, got to 330, and he's been pretty well shorting it from the 300s. They never got it approved, and obviously we've been through the first phase of Omicron. COVID, second phase, and that's what those original virus vaccines were for. Then we've gone through to Omicron. By then, they basically just stopped you getting sicker, but they didn't protect you. Correct me if I'm wrong in any of this. I'm no biologist. And then the boosters, we've already been through a few phases of boosters, I think. But basically, the boosters didn't work for the first group. The boosters were for the first group, right? And they don't work for Omicron or something like that. Anyway, a lot of people, they haven't been taken up well because since it's moved on to another phase of the virus, because as you know, if you've had a flu shot, they don't work for everything. Plus, you've had a lot of anti-vaxxer movement. Plus, you've had other things. So at the end of the result, anyway, it hasn't been a big takedown. Fast forward, NVAX finally got their vaccine approved, and I don't know much about it, but is it for this original one or where we're at now? Do you know?
Well, I guess where we're at now, I would assume. I mean, so they probably all go off the original one, and I have no idea.
Yeah.
What it is for,
It's all, yeah, so basically the big ones, the big outflow of it's happened, right? And then we've changed. And now you got more people against it. So it's probably not a good time. But it did pop. Looks like it popped $10.
Yeah, I bought it.
Yeah.
I was short, I bought it.
So, and looks like it was closed all day, right? Or more or less, yeah. So that's Omicron there. I keep calling it Omicron. Novavax. It's hard. So something this compressed. A 1 cent, 1 minute chart's next to useless. The only thing that's really going to help you, if you want to look where previous supply and resistance is of longer term, you can see and pretty well what stopped it here is the top of this cloud. It just means there's orders here. See where it broke down? So there's probably people waiting forever to get out of this thing, more than likely, right? As far as crypto goes, okay, I got a few messages. Today we got a few messages that crypto has been a bull terror today.
Don't forget the big one, AERC.
Oh yeah, we'll get through that. I just wanted to go through this real quickly. So what I've noticed on crypto, and I don't trade it, I think this is dribbler hour. Actually, they probably don't even go near it. They just bullshit about it. But it's a bit of a punter's paradise, but you got to be fast. So look at the last... this is look at the last 3 days. So it falls down from 30,000 and a half, goes down to 29.20. rallies over 2 days and see how it does it all very quickly. So it rallies very quickly. Shouldn't say fast, that's pretty bad English. $3,000. Within 5 hours, it craps all the way down to new lows under these zones. So you know people are getting triggered on stops, right? Because that tends to be what people put them. Look how fast that was. And there was probably a reason. I don't have any idea. I think this was the Ethereum matchup, actually. Something like that. Or at least I'm talking about it. And then it bounced. And look what it did. It retraced the whole thing again. This move here is $2,400. Look at that, Madabi. That's Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You got to love it.
Love it.
It's what they call... You want to harden up? Trade some Bitcoin.
I trade it once in a while.
Yeah, the keywords once in a while. You have your fill and you move on, right? So let's look at Ethereum. So we just mentioned Ethereum in that little section. So let's compare apples with apples. So Ethereum actually fell more, remember Bitcoin basically got to that level, and then it rallied all the way back as well on that breakdown. So I don't know where Meta Johnny is. He hasn't been the same since his girl left Facebook, but he'd probably have more to say on that. Okay, let's look at... so a stock that we've been mucking around in. Oh, well, actually, did we mention KSS last night? I think it was after we did the thing. So yeah. KSS was one, if you remember, Madavi had that order in, remember, last week? If you might remember, punters. And...
yesterday.
Well, that was yesterday, but last week, if you remember, these were the guys that they had an auction. Everyone dropped out, so it fell from like 60 back to 30 odd. So they cancelled their auction because they didn't have enough bids, and then then all of a sudden, so that was at 4, right? So 47 down to 35, and this is where you made money. You covered it short and you got long, and then someone came out and said, look, we'll buy the bloody thing at $60. It's like franchise or something. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, it pops from 35, gets to 44, then dribbles down all the way to 39 again. Because no new news, people get bored, whatever. Then, and we've had these kind of actions. So then what happened... I thought it was higher than this. And then what happened, this company, KSS here, so you can see all this price action, right? So KSS comes out here and makes an announcement that they're giving, is it 3 weeks? A 3 weeks period to this company that offered the 60 to exclusive negotiations. So in other words, they're saying, look, we're serious. And a lot of people were doubtful of it because they knocked back a $64 bid last time, but a lot's obviously happened in the economy. We've got a war, we've got inflation, all this stuff's happened since the last time. They're probably going, what the heck?
49, most of my stuff.
What was that?
Last night it went up to 49.
Yeah. So we can see 49 right here. So we've traded back there, but you can see, so that's what's going on there. So the lesson here, I guess, punters, is when you get that in play, keep an eye on it, right? And you can see like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 7 days later, that's a normal time week. You can do optionality. When you get this thing sell off, remember a lot of people pay up for it, then that vol really craps, so you can actually buy cheap optionality and stuff. That's all in hindsight stuff, but for next time. Okay, let's look at AERC. So this stock you may have heard before, us muck around in. So this is one of those stocks that it can be weird. It's been a big disappointment for a long time. It's run a couple of times over the while. I'm going to bring up a weekly. It's too much. A daily. I think this was a new IPO or something. I really can't remember. But anyway, they're a tech. It's been run. You can see last year, the end of 21, it ran as high as $112. It's thin, short squeeze sort of stuff. It then came all the way down to under $2, I think. Yep. But basically it's been at $2. They had an announcement last week. And it's a favourite of a lot of the punters and dribblers, right? They love this sort of stuff. Then it came down and it held this cage and trades very well technically, actually. If you don't believe me, look at the grid. 1.8 to almost 2.8 on a 60-minute, right? So if you go to 5 minutes, it's even sweeter, right? So look at how it happens. Series of patterns, bang, series. So that's indicative, and as Madavi, so I'll let him talk in it. But so he watches order flow. This is indicative of that. You can see it pump, 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 right? Do you want to go through a bit of it?
Which one? HER?
AERC, yeah. I got it up. You can see it.
Yeah. Hold on. I was just looking at something. Yeah, so this thing took off yesterday. I saw it yesterday, and it was looking really good, but it was kind of choppy, and I got out. I mean, I had a nice size of it, like 490 or 480. And then today, it started just taking off, and I got late onto the game of it. But when I seen it come off the highs, and we're about a half an hour to the close, I started picking up more and more shares of it, and I had a feeling that after the market, this thing would probably make a new high. So I held it for after the market. The order flow was going. It was not dumping down. So when something dumps down, it might dump down a few points, but there'll be no bidders. This thing's once people are done buying this, it'll part the sea. And plus, I find the news is pretty good. They just got an FDA approval for some air cleaning that kills all the germs, even COVID. So the news is there. Everything's there. I think this thing could go higher. If you look back a couple months back, this is a new IPO, I believe, and it was a price in this. So, and look at the volume. The volume gives it away. When you got 120 million shares or 300 million shares, that is legitimate buying of this stock.
Yeah, it confirms the interest for sure, doesn't it?
There's a heavy amount of interest. I don't know what the float is on this. I doubt it's.
I'd imagine it's pretty small, given it's a recent IPO and it's actually
IPO. So, but it tells me the interest is a lot. There's a lot of day traders there. That's why it keeps on flipping. But with buying like this, it can continue going up. We'll see how much further legs got, but the news is there and the volume's there.
So to give you an idea how sometimes you just get out too early or you miss the boat, we might have talked about this 2 days ago, but we actually owned this at 262, right? Put a stop. I think it was here. It was at 262, yeah. Put a stop to make coffee or whatever. Got stopped out. I'm guessing it's this bar, or maybe it's one of these bars at it's got to be this one, at 280, right? Remember that? I've said.
Yeah.
And so I've come back. It's like 320, and there's people we knew buying. I'm like, then energy's kind of taken all my focus away. And then we did one little trade after the market. I guess it's this one yesterday. And then, of course, it had a beautiful... So look at these patterns. If you study patterns, you can see how perfect they are. And the 5 minutes even better. But you can see these little patterns. Like today, then it broke here. And what you're looking for is retest. As Madavi said, they come back in and buy. And so there's an interest. And then they start lifting the offers. And you can see it stayed with this tanking, which is basically like the underbid, right? Think of it like that. And you can also see it on your market maker box. It got all the way up to here, and it got all the way to plus 1.8. Now, here's what you have to do if you're trading these. These have a lot of punters and dribblers in it. So they get locked, they get pumped, all this sort of stuff. You ease out when you see something plus 1.8. I mean, yeah, it can go to plus 2.8, but it's another $1. If it gets... like locked, because it's gone too far and it's got to reopen, you just don't know where it's going to open. And that's what happened here. I can't say I was watching it, but it looks like it went over 14, got all the way back to 920. Now, if you haven't taken profit or if you're long above or even here, that's real money. So just be aware of that. And then it did it again perfectly. It went over Madavi's target, a new highs, just short of plus 2.8s. And then look at that. And we always look for this pattern. 1, 2s, 1, 2, like up, 1, 2. See how it replicates? That's machines and humans. They're all predictable, right? Bonds we want to look at. Bonds. There was a 3-year bond today, sale. And these have been disappointing for a while. You have a 10 and a 30 still to come this week. Demand was low. All this stuff's on the website. It got a D plus from across the fixed interest desk. And that was pretty well what it got at the fixed interest shops as well. What that meant was there wasn't demand at those yields, right? Those prices. And we saw in the bond market, you can see how that's impacting. And you've got the inflation to come out this week, on Friday. And it seems to be the equity market is oblivious to what's going on. The bond and currency markets are aware. Look at gold. Gold is aware too. It's just stock market. And people think I'm being a dick, but the lowest level of trader... Well, I guess crypto is your total punt. But out of the bigger markets, concrete markets, traditionally it's been equities because of motion and less professional, that sort of stuff. And that's why we're able to take advantage, but that's also why bear markets can be really hard. Anyway, look at gold, 1, 2, 3, and it bounced back through that flag as we thought. Remember, it was really testing that. So beware of people that say they know Ichimoku that haven't been well versed in it, because they would have told you to sell here, because I saw one of the dribblers. All it was really doing, you got to look, combined with Nova Wave pattern, order flow, Ichimoku, Mari map, or map. So what gold did, right? So gold is aware there's inflation. The US dollar is aware there's inflation. The bond market's aware there's inflation. What's stock market doing? So take that for what it's worth. Okay. So look at this ABC. Clear low here. That would no longer be an ABC. So that's gold. We don't need to go through all the other commodities, currencies. You know what's going on there. You saw the RBA. And you got a slew of smaller banks. India, Chile, Peru, I think. Probably going to raise rates. You got the Russians on Friday going to lower rates more than likely. Their country's just totally messed now. And if you remember, they raised all their rates to protect the ruble. Now the ruble's come back because the only people buying it are those countries, either Russians that have to repatriate or the countries that when Putin said you got to pay for them. And really that's kind of backfiring too. So what it's allowed is they can bring down the currencies, right? The interest rate, what the Russian people don't know, they don't get the news. So they don't know that no one's buying it. They got no interest with the high interest rates, right? But they can bring it down domestically. So that's all going to go on Friday. Keep your eye on that. If that impacts energy at all, probably not. But that's all the banks. Inflation, what else? That's about it, really. So NVAX will be in play tomorrow. This ARC will be in play till it's not. It's kind of one of those games. Energy stocks, keep an eye on them. Be aware of an imminent pullback when they happen, and you just award, right? You don't want what Alcoa did. Right? It kept going up, and then you don't want to get caught in all this. Now, we're not at plus 4.8s in the stuff I just showed you, but look how far, this is aluminium or aluminum. Look how far it came back, right? And it's bounced $13 now, but look, it's 152. That's just half its value. Right? And I know it's different energy and all that, but I'm just trying to point out the commodity risks are real. That's about it, really. Anything else, Madavi?
No, that's it. You got it covered. Great job.
So we'll leave you with the Longhorn, and be aware, I'm not a fan of Texas Longhorns, given we're an A&M family now, so it's nothing to do with that. It's just an oil well at Texas, and someone sent it to me, and he said, you know it's a bull. I said, yeah, you can see by its horns. He says, no, you know it's a bull. So sorry to break it to you, but they are pretty omnipresent. If you're in Australia, enjoy the State of Origin this morning. It's the biggest sporting event there, first of the series. The Blues is who we support, so that'll be good fun. It's a huge thing down there, Madabi. If you think of how big the NFL and the Super Bowls and all that, this is the whole country, and it's state against state, so it's a lot bigger than anything here. Not as many people, of course, but you'd love it. They just bash the crap out of each other for 80 minutes, basically.
As long as they're bashing the crap out of each other, I'm cool.
Right. Which you're going to do the NVX shorts by the sound of it.
I love it when Aussies beat up each other.
Oh, mate, we love it. Character building. It just makes it easier to beat other people up.
It just makes me so much better looking at them.
So, I'm just a quick update after hours. I see that the Spurs have opened back up, and they're up a little bit. Forehand, I think we started this at 52, so we're up at 56. Oil's pretty well unchanged since API. It's off the high, and that's it really. So we will love you and leave you. Remember, make sure if you like what we're doing, hit the like button, hit the share and subscribe. If you think it's valuable, share it with other people. And all that sort of stuff. Yeah, and if you want to talk about anything with us, let us know. And we'll try and fit it in at the end of the day. Or you can follow on Twitter. There's a few people that write for Trades Community. They're on Twitter and all that. So they will converse with you about the markets they do and all that. So on that note, we will see you at the roundabout. And exactly. We don't know where Johnny is. We put our APB out on him. He hasn't come in. He's somewhere in the metaverse.
School today. He's going to be doing some nursing, I think.
Some nursing. I'm scared to elaborate on that one.